Hello everybody and welcome to Round 3 Reviews, back with a Hong Kong content review, continuing on with the Flying Guillotine series, part of the trilogy. I've already talked about the Flying Guillotine 1. As you can see, I have the Shout Factory edition. I have sold now my 88 film version, no longer need it. I'm happy with the version I have the best in terms of the picture quality, transfers and the better extras is on the Shout edition. Next up we have is part 2, and then following up will be the Vengeful Beauty, which I've heard is the best of the trilogy, which I'm quite looking forward to. Diving into this one, guys, Flying Guillotine Part 2, released in 1978, about 3 years after the first one. And surprisingly, learning more about this film in terms of the very messy and chaotic kind of production kind of history, from the awesome audio commentary on the edition from Mike Leader and Armin Venema, really insightful extra. As really diving into the film and onto the booklet as well, doing some of my individual research. This film had so much going against it. It is a miracle this film is actually watchable, actually enjoyable for the most part, and it could have been complete and utter mess from start to finish. And you can feel some of these affecting changes from the production, but I am surprised the film is as functional as it is despite knowing this, which is very interesting. Now, Chang stepped into director this film after the departure of the original director of the first film. No longer wanted to be attached. He happy with the first Flying Guillotine film. Went off to do Dragon Missile instead, which from what I understand is meant to be a very similar kind of concept about a kind of a Flying Guillotine type of weapon, but this time it's 2 boomerangs. Not entirely sure. Looking forward to checking that one out very, very soon, but he went off and did that instead. First director part ways. You've got the main actor from the first one also not returning, being replaced, having a bit of a troubled kind of, back and forth between kind of Shaw Brothers and some arguments going on there. And according to the booklet and the extra on this edition for part 2, the girlfriend, the wife kind of actress, can't quite pronounce her name, but she vanished. She just basically didn't come back. I think she did 1 day's worth of work. If that, and then she just vanished from the set, never to be seen again. And that's a thing I've heard quite a few times from Shaw Brothers films and other films like it, where, actresses kind of just disappear for whatever good reason. I hope, she's okay. I hope that she was, not in any danger or anything. I will do a bit more research, but really kind of wacky start to the production. You've lost your director and lost your 2 surviving stars, your main characters from your ending of your first film. Where do you go essentially from it? And that's the interesting thing about this film. As to be expected, Shaw Brothers wanted to make a sequel almost immediately after the big massive box office success from the first film. Again, the director from behind the 14 Amazons, which is on the Shawscope Volume 3 set, which I will be checking out at some point soon. To get that director involved, which I've not seen much of his films, if I've not seen any of his films, if I'm being honest. But it's an interesting choice to come in. I think he does about half the film, and then he steps away from creative differences, and then they get the director behind one of the kind of the Power Rangers, kind of, the super something. And that director's name is Yung Chang, which I've not seen any of his films. I'm familiar, but the fact they had a third director, or technically a second director, attached to the project with the original kind of stepping away, also replacing our main star with T Long, which is a go-to Shaw Brothers up to this point, which I've seen him mainly within a lot of the kind of the John Woo kind of stuff, About Tomorrow, but obviously he did a lot of the Shaw Brothers kind of, heroic kind of, swordplay kind of characters. I recently did do a review for the Magic Blade, which I thought he was very, very good in, and it's nice to see a bit more of his history. I've only seen a limited amount of his films. I've only seen most of his modern kind of stuff. He's most of these kind of crime movies, his kind of gangster-based kind of stuff. Very last minute, apparently, according to the audio commentary, and to step in and basically kind of, take over that role that was in the first film. Now, that character and that actor is very limited in the film. He's basically kind of like the bookends and the middle of the film, essentially, not the main focus of the actual film. He kind of steps up at the start, saves a bunch of the kind of resistance, and then he's in the middle of the film. Something very obviously kind of just happened in terms of a typical revenge story. Very, very cliche, but just kind of enough there to kind of, oh my god, it's shocking, but not really. And then he kind of comes in, joins the third fight at the end of the film against the Emperor. Now, the narrative for the Flying Guillotine Part 2 basically continues on from where the first one left off. It's set not too long after, and actually addresses and actually does the things that I was sort of having minor kind of complaints about within the first film. I was a little bit surprised that the third act of the first film was very minuscule. It was kind of like they had the concept, the idea within the first half an hour. The last hour of the film essentially is going through the motions. It's safe, it's decent, it's enjoyable. You definitely get some of the Flying Guillotine stuff, you get some of the drama, and it ends on a pretty happy note overall, essentially, in terms of that character killing off his entire squad and essentially defeating the small henchman bad guy that was basically trying to gather up power towards the end of the film. And it kind of ends, and they are free to basically kind of live their life and go off, essentially. Obviously, there is no happy endings in these films. Where part 2 comes in, the Emperor has basically formed a new task force of the Flying Guillotine, a lot more members, and basically has kind of 2 kind of subordinates and other kind of generals involved. And basically he is getting really angry and really annoyed because the Han's people are going against him. People are kind of questioning his kind of motivations and his actions, and he is the nastiest of nastiest rulers ever. And the actor who plays this, the Emperor in this film, is absolutely awesome, being the fact he has a lot of screen time compared to the first film, even more so. And if you don't have a good bad guy in your film, for your Hong Kong movie, then the film does fall apart. And that's one of the saving factors, and I see the highlights of this film, is how ruthless this Emperor character is. He is despicable. I like the fact he actually does step up. He's not all talk as well, which is a nice surprise. You see that a little bit in the third act of the film. He actually does know some kung fu, and he definitely does take up a few arms. I like that. I enjoy that. I appreciate that. And he is just off the rails in this film. He's just kind of killing people left, right, and center. Does not care. Kill your family. Kill, all the subordinates basically say, "I deserve death," and he's like, "I will grant your wish," and go ahead, kill yourself. It's just complete lunacy and bonkers. And basically, he establishes a new task force. There is a resistance, which is something that I thought was going to happen in the first one, but they didn't do, but they did in this one now. And basically, this kind of resistance order wants to kind of stop the Emperor once and for all during assassination. The opening of the film is a failed assassination attempt. All goes to hell a little bit. Well, a lot of them get killed off very quickly. With the positives of this film in terms of the Flying Guillotine stuff, you're going to get a lot more higher body count this time around, and it is a lot more nastier in places. The weird thing about the Flying Guillotine, as I said, it is goofy, but also is badass at the same time. They definitely rank up some of that violence a little bit in terms of the chopping heads. But the weird thing is about it is that when you do use a weapon like this, it is a very quick kill, and they have bursts in the film towards the middle, start and end, just towards the start, middle and end of the film, where they're basically killing off a lot of characters very quickly, very early on, where with their side characters or main characters, they're getting killed by the Flying Guillotine weapon because it is a one-shot kill. It's not like extended fight scene with swords or anything or kung fu. It's a very quick disposable weapon and quick disposable kill, and it's great in terms of kind of body count and surprise factor and twists and turns, but it's not very sustainable for an hour and a half movie, so you have to have some melodrama going in between, some tension, some twists and turns, or some discussion happening, and that's what the film essentially does. The first portion of the film is essentially the introduction and the continuation of the Flying Guillotine. You're introducing the Emperor, and you get to see a lot more of his kind of operation, his temple. He spent a lot of time there, and there's obviously internal kind of, backstabbing going in the works, and kind of trickery and betrayals. And you got the rebel force basically trying to infiltrate and trying to find what's going on, and they are basically building up to basically storm the gate and assassinate him once and for all. And that's essentially what the hour and a half movie does. It's a back and forth between the two, with the character from the first film basically being kind of used at very specific points in the film, and being used as a kind of a, he's the guy who basically defined the Emperor originally. He knows the Flying Guillotine weapon. He has his prototype kind of umbrella, which is really, really cool. And I like the fact the film does have some sense of escalation, does have a sense of kind of like, it knows that its storyline is kind of very meddling, and I'm curious to see what director did what. I'm curious to see what the original vision was, because the storyline is very incoherent at times. It's very messy. It doesn't know really what direction he wants to go for, and a lot of the times it just kind of sticks to one location for the longest possible time, and has this really kind of strange internal kind of back and forth in terms of the treachery. The rebels kind of get forgotten about after a while, then they come back, and then the back and forth, flip, and then introducing new ideas with the kind of the female Flying Guillotine squad. There's a lot going on in this film. There's a lot of characters as well, so many characters, and it's kind of a miracle this film is as easy to follow as it currently is. I was surprised how much I was enjoying it, despite some of these issues, despite some of the pacing and some of the inconsistencies with the storyline and where it wants to go and direction-wise. And but it does have a lot of intrigue and does have a lot of interest. And the fact that the villain is so strong and so kind of dominating on screen, and the fact he once designed a new superior Flying Guillotine because he's getting really pissed off and annoyed about Basically, he's kind of like, previous kind of, commander going rogue and kind of betraying him, and he wants to create a new, better design to counteract the kind of umbrella prototype, and they create this kind of like essentially a double basket, essentially. So it kind of like one kind of triggers, another one will kind of latch out and kind of flip, and basically if you try and stop it, it will deflect it and, basically go on and tag your head, rip your head off, essentially. So they create this new superior flying guillotine weapon, which is pretty nasty and it's pretty cool. It's just a simple kind of additional attachment, but it's effective for the film where it goes for. And I like the scene where he's kind of, the Emperor's using against a kind of a smart ass, essentially servant. And again, he doesn't care about anyone in this film, not a single person. His mentor that teaches him in his entire life, his, someone he admires immensely kind of thing, someone who basically is looking up to him, does not care. Anyone's disposable, anyone says anything, any whisper, any sense of treachery whatsoever, whether you're kissing his ass, whether you're not, he will dispose of you very quickly. And he has that much power. It's unfucking believable. It's really, really cool. And I like the fact that this like slash kind of signature kind of thing. We've got to slash him, slash his entire family, kill all of them. It's just bonkers. It's really, really insane, which I think is really fun at the same time. As mentioned in the film, the rebel resistance are a little bit more of the focus this time around, especially within the general's kind of daughter, which is basically servant to the kind of emperor. This daughter basically is very kind of feisty, kind of knows what to do. She's looking after herself. She's got martial arts training. She's the leader of the kind of the female flying guillotine, and she manages to kind of infiltrate and show worth and show her kind of power and position to get close to the emperor, to get to a point where they can strike him, and even to the point where she has to do something quite horrible to kind of prove her loyalty. And even that action is not enough for the emperor, and it's just so despicable. You just get yourself angry, and it's good. The film knows its strengths, and I think it knew how to kind of just about put this film together, because the majority of this film is essentially the emperor's kind of day in the life of the emperor and his kind of wicked deeds. Essentially, you've got the female infiltrator, and a good portion of the story going to her and stealing blueprints and trying to figure out what's going on and what the plans are. And essentially you've got T-Long in the background, basically just being kind of used as a kind of a plot point to add some kind of closure to the first film. And by the fact he has the prototype weapon, he has to design a new an extension to that prototype weapon once he finds about the superior flying guillotine, and he's just used very sparingly in the film throughout it. I think it was a little bit disservice, if I'm being honest. I think they set this character up quite well. I liked what they did with this character, that version of the character anyway in the first film. And I felt in this one, he was just there to be used as a third, fourth, fifth character, and he's just there to kind of, serve the purpose for the Rebel Resistance later on. So it's a very messy and complicated history for Flying Guillotine Part 2, but yet to my surprise, I found it to be quite enjoyable. I think it's about the same line as the first film. I don't think either one is better than the other. I think both equally have some equal problems. In terms of kind of plotting, in terms of just the same level amount of kind of flying guillotine, kind of action-based stuff. There's a little bit more subplot, there's a bit more kung fu in this one, which I do appreciate. Both have their strengths and weaknesses, and I think they're both entertaining films for a double feature. I think you can put both of these films on for an afternoon and you can get a lot of fun out of them, but there will be a lot of talking, a lot of melodrama in places, and a lot of kind of big speeches without action for good portions. But when it does appear, when it is there, it's pretty badass, it's pretty fun, and it's a very enjoyable by the end for sure. I will say, amongst the kind of the bad guys and the good guys in this film, there's so many recognizable faces. There's so many kind of Hong Kong actors from other Shaw Brothers projects and big stars they're going to recognize in the background, in the forefront. Too many to name here, but just a really good collection of really talented kind of performers that are just kind of pumping out these films in kind of rapid rotation. And it's great to see a lot of familiar faces within this film as well, compared to some of the first one as well alongside it. So it's really good, including some returning actors that play different characters in the first one, still adding some of that charm, some of that villainous, some of that heroic stuff as well, which I think is really good and really beneficial for the film. Very common with a lot of Hong Kong movies, but it's great to see some familiar faces yet again. So meantime, Amphlett Reviews, signing out.